Muller is dead. Someone shot him point blank in the stomach with a very light. He lived for half an hour, quite conscious and in terrible pain. Before he died, he handed over his pocketbook to me and bequeathed me his boots, the same that he once inherited from Kemmerich. I wear them, for they fit me quite well. After me, Tieden will get them. I've promised them to him. We have been able to bury Muller, but he is not likely to remain long undisturbed. Our lines are falling back. There are too many fresh English and American regiments over there. There's too much corned beef and white wheaten bread, too many new guns, too many airplanes. But we are emaciated and starved. Our food is bad and mixed up with so much substitute stuff that it makes us ill. The factory owners in Germany have grown wealthy. Dysentery dissolves our bowels. The latrine poles are always densely crowded. The people at home ought to be shown these gray, yellow, miserable, wasted faces here, these bent figures from whose body the colic wrings out the blood, and who with lips trembling and distorted with pain grin at one another and say, "It is not much sense pulling up one's trousers again." Our artillery is fired out. It has too few shells, and the barrels are so worn that they shoot uncertainly and scatter so widely as even to fall on ourselves. We have too few horses. Our fresh troops are anemic boys in need of rest, who cannot carry a pack, but merely know how to die, by thousands. They understand nothing about warfare. They simply go on and let themselves be shot down. A single flyer routed 2 companies of them for a joke, just as they came fresh from the train, before they had even heard such a thing as cover. Germany ought to be empty soon, says Cat. We have given up hope that someday an end may come. We never think so far. A man can stop a bullet and be killed. He can get wounded, and then the hospital is his next stop. There, if they do not amputate him, he sooner or later falls in the hands of one of those staff surgeons who, with the War Service Cross on his buttonhole, says to him, "What, one leg a bit short? If you have any pluck, you don't need to run to the front." The man is A1, dismiss. Cat tells a story that has traveled the whole length of the front, from the Vosges to Flanders, of the staff surgeon who reads the names on the list. When a man comes before him without looking up, he says, "A1, we need soldiers up there." A fellow with a wooden leg comes up before him. The staff surgeon says, "A1." And then Cat raises his voice. The fellow says to him, "I already have a wooden leg, but when I go back again and they shoot off my head, then I will get a wooden head made and become a staff surgeon." This answer tickles us all immensely. There may be good doctors, and there are, lots of them. All the same, every soldier sometime during his hundreds of inspections falls into the clutches of one of these countless hero grabbers who pride themselves on changing as many C3s and B3s as possible into A1s. But there are many such stories. They are mostly far more bitter. All the same, they have nothing to do with mutiny or lead swinging. They are merely honest and call a thing by its name. For there's a very great deal of fraud, injustice, and baseness in the army. It is nothing that regiment after regiment returns again and again to the more hopeless struggle, that attack follows attack along the weakening, retreating, crumbling line. From a mockery, the tanks have become a terrible weapon. Armored, they come rolling in long lines, more than anything else embody for us the horror of war. We do not see the guns that bombard us. The attacking lines of the enemy infantry are men like ourselves. But these tanks are machines. Their caterpillars run on as endless as the war. They are annihilation. They roll without feeling into the craters, climb up again without stopping. A fleet of roaring, smoke-belching, armor-clad, invulnerable steel beasts squashing the dead and the wounded. We shrivel up in our thin skin before them. Against their colossal weight, our arms are sticks of straw, and our hand grenades matches. Shells, gas clouds, and flotillas of tanks, shattering, corroding death. Dysentery, influenza, typhus, scalding, choking death. Trenches, hospitals, the common grave. There are no other possibilities. In one attack, our company commander, Burtnick, falls. He was one of those superb frontline officers who are foremost in every hot place. He was with us for 2 years without being wounded, so that something had to happen in the end. We occupy a crater and get surrounded. The stink of petroleum or oil blows across with the fumes of powder. 2 fellows with a flamethrower are seen. One carries the tin on his back, the other has the hose in his hands from which the fire spouts. They get so near that If they get so near that they can reach us, we are done for. We cannot retreat yet. We open fire on them, but they work near and things begin to look bad. Burtnick is lying in the hole with us. When he sees that we cannot hit them because under the sharp fire we have to think too much about keeping under cover, he takes a rifle, crawls out of the hole, and lying down, props on his elbows, he takes aim. He fires. The same moment a bullet smacks into him, they've got him. Still he lies and aims again. Once he shifts and again takes aim. At last the rifle cracks. Burtnick lets the gun drop and says good, and slips back into the hole. The hindermost of the two flamethrowers is hit. He falls. The hose slips away from the other fellow. Fire squirts about on all sides, and the man burns. Burtnick has a chest wound. After a while, a fragment smashes away his chin, and the same fragment has sufficient force to tear open Lear's hip. Lear groans as he supports himself on his arm. He bleeds quickly. No one can help him. Like an emptying tube, after a couple minutes, he collapses. What use is it to him now that he was such a good mathematician at school? The months pass by. The summer of 1918 is the most bloody and the most terrible. The days stand like angels in blue and gold, incomprehensible, above the ring of annihilation. Every man here knows that we are losing the war. Not much is said about it. We are falling back. We will not be able to attack again after this big offensive. We have no more men and no more ammunition. Still, the campaign goes on. The dying goes on. Summer of 1918. Never has life in its niggardliness seemed to us so desirable as now. The red poppies in the meadows round our billets, the smooth beetles on the blades of grass, the warm evenings in the cool dim rooms, the black mysterious trees of the twilight, the stars and the flowing waters, dreams and long sleep. Oh, life, life, life. Summer of 1918. Never was so much silently suffered as in the moment when we depart again for the front line. Wild, tormenting rumors of an armistice and peace are in the air. They lay hold on our hearts and make the return to the front harder than ever. The summer of 1918. Never was life in the line more bitter and full of horror than the hours of the bombardment, when the blanched faces lie in the dirt and the hands clutch at the one thought, no, no, not now, not now at the last moment. The summer of 1918. Breath of hopes that sweep over the scorched fields, raging fever of impatience, of disappointment, the most agonizing terror of death. Insensate question, why? Why do they make an end? And why do these rumors of an end fly about? There are so many airmen here, and they are so sure of themselves that they give chase to single individuals, just as though they were hares. For every one German plane, there will come at least 5 English and American. For one hungry, wretched German soldier come 5 of the enemy, fresh and fit. For one German army loaf, there are 50 tins of canned beef over there. We are not beaten. For soldiers, we are better and more experienced. We are simply crushed and driven back by overwhelming superior forces. Behind us lay rainy weeks, gray sky, gray fluid earth, gray dying. If we go out, the rain at once soaks through our overcoat and clothing, and we remain wet all the time we are in the line. We never get dry. Those who will wear high boots tie sandbags around the top so that the mud does not pour in so fast. The rifles are caked, the uniforms caked, everything is fluid and dissolved. The earth is one dripping, soaked, oily mass in which lie yellow pools with red spiral streams of blood, and into which the dead, wounded, and survivors slowly sink in. The storm lashes us. Out of the confusion of the gray and yellow, the hail of splinters whips forth like the childlike cries of the wounded, and in the night shattered life groans painfully into silence. Our hands are earth, our bodies clay, and our eyes pools of rain. We do not know whether we still live. Then the heat sinks heavily into our shell holes like a jellyfish, moist and oppressive, and on one of these late summer days, while bringing up food, Cat falls. We too are alone. I bind up his wound. His shin seems to be smashed. It has got to the bone, and Cat groans desperately. At last, just at the last. I comfort him. Who knows how long this mess will go on yet? Now you are saved. The wound begins to bleed fast. Cat cannot be left by himself while I try to find a stretcher. Anyway, I don't know of a stretcher bearer's post in the neighborhood. Cat is not very heavy, so I take him up on my back and start off to the dressing station with him. Twice we rest. He suffers acutely on the way. We do not speak much. I've opened the collar of my tunic and breathe heavily. I sweat and my face is swollen with the strain of carrying. All the same, I urge him to let us go on, for the place is dangerous. Shall we go on again, Cat? Must, Paul. Then come. I raise him up. He stands on the uninjured leg and supports himself against a tree. I take up the wounded leg carefully, and then he gives a jump, and I take the knee of the sound leg also under my arm. The going is more difficult. Often a shell whistles across. I go as quickly as I can, for the blood from Cat's wound drips onto the ground. We cannot shelter ourselves properly for the explosions. Before we can take cover, the danger is all over. We lie down in a small hole and wait till the shelling is over. I give Cat some tea from my water bottle. We smoke a cigarette. Well, Cat, I say gloomily, we're going to be separated at last. He's silent and looks at me. Do you remember, Cat, how we commandeered those goose? How you brought me out of the barrage when I was still a young recruit and was wounded for the first time? I cried then. Cat, that is almost 3 years ago. He nods. The anguish of solitude rises up in me. When Cat is taken away, I will not have one friend left. Cat, in any case, we must see one another again. If it is peacetime before you come back. Do you think I will be marked A1 again with this leg? He asked bitterly. With rest, it will get better. The joint is quite sound. It may get all right again. Give me another cigarette, he says. Perhaps we could do something together later on, Cat. I'm very miserable. It is impossible that Cat, my friend, Cat with the drooping shoulders and the poor thin mustache, Cat, whom I know as I know no other man, Cat, with whom I have shared these years. It is impossible that perhaps I shall not see Cat again. In any case, give me your address at home. Give me your address at home, Cat, and here's mine. I'll write it down for you. I write his address in my pocketbook. How forlorn I am already, though he still sits here beside me. Couldn't I shoot myself quickly in the foot so as to be able to go with him? Suddenly, Cat gurgles and turns green and yellow. Let's go on, he stammers. I jump up, eager to help him. I take him up and start off at a run, a slow, steady pace, so as not to jolt his leg too much. My throat is parched. Everything dances red and black before my eyes. I stagger on doggedly and pitilessly, and at last reach the dressing station. There I drop down on my knees, but have still enough strength to fall onto the side where Cat's sound leg is. After a few minutes, I straighten myself up again. My legs and my hands tremble. I have trouble in finding my water bottle, so take a pull. My lips tremble as I try to think, but I smile. Cat is saved. After a while, I begin to sort out the confusion of voices that fall in my ears. You might have spared yourself that, says an orderly. I look at him without comprehending. He points to Cat. He's stone dead. I do not understand him. He's been hit in the shin, I say. The orderly stands still. That as well. I turn around. My eyes are still dulled. The sweat breaks out on me again and runs over my eyelids. I wipe it away and peer at Cat. He lies still. Fainted, I say quickly. The order whistles softly. I know better than that. He's dead. I'll lay any money on that. I shake my head. Not possible. Only 10 minutes ago I was talking to him. He has fainted. Cat's hands are warm. Pass my hand under his shoulders in order to rub his temples with some tea. I feel my fingers become moist. As I draw them away from behind his head, they are bloody. You see, the orderly whistles once more through his teeth. On the way, without my having noticed, Cat has caught a splinter in the head. There is just one little hole. It must have been a very tiny stray splinter, but it has sufficed. Cat is dead. Slowly I get up. Would you like to take his pay book and his things? The lance corporal asks me. I nod, and he gives them to me. The orderly is mystified. You are not related, are you? No, we are not related. No, we are not related. Do I walk? Have I feet still? I raise my eyes. I let them move around and turn myself with them. One circle, and I stand in the midst. All is as usual. Only the militiaman Stanislaus Kaczynski has died. Then I know nothing more.